What's up everybody, my name is Carl, and today is the beginning of the end. The car aesthetic series will be drawing to a close. I know I've said there can be numerous parts to this series, but I would like to explore different car related topics. In some cases it can be tricky to find a specific category of car that is either good looking or ugly, but I have enjoyed the challenge and also researching into different aesthetic eras of car. Maybe I'll bring the series back in the future, but yeah, I think looking at something else would be cool. Without further ado, welcome to the 6 ugliest cars of the 50s. The 50s sure seemed to be a revolutionary era in the automotive world, really beginning to experiment with different forms and styles. In some cases it worked, and in the case of this video, not so much. So as a refresher, I'll be picking 6 different categories of car from this era, which are convertible, SUV or family vehicle, small car, luxury car, sports car, and then we've got general car, which can vary from anything to a small car to a hyper GT. And of course, this is my opinion alone, you might have a different view, and if that's the case, feel free to participate by commenting down below your picks what you think the 6 ugliest cars from the 50s are. Without further ado, let's begin, starting with the ugliest convertible from the 50s, which goes to the 1958 Ford Edsel Citation convertible. It's crazy to think we got some pretty iconic and incredible looking cars from Ford, but we also got some awful looking ones too, like this one. The rear end taillights look like eyebrows, literally the first thing that comes to my head when I saw them. Also, the chrome part which houses the exhaust seemed like they forgot to add the exhaust tips last minute. Crap, we forgot the exhaust tips, just need to quickly put them in. Perfect. But that's honestly nothing compared to the front end of the Edsel, which is definitely the worst part about this car. There's basically way too much going on with the design of the front, too much overstyling. The 2 panels beneath the headlights are so unnecessary. They house the indicator lights and really don't need to be a part of the design. Getting rid of them would clean up the front end. I don't like how the headlights just stick out the way they do, like 2 bulging eyes. The central grille looks bizarre too, like it more or less looks like a 2-in-1 system. It makes it seem that Ford couldn't make up their minds on which one they wanted, so why not have both? Yeah, doesn't look good. Moving on to the ugliest SUV or family car of the 50s, which goes to the 1954 Nash Rambler Cross Country. Why did you do this, Nash? Why? You could have done a normal wagon for a family, but no, you had to do this. Why? If you were looking at this car from the front or the rear straight on, it looks perfectly normal, but unfortunately you can't look at it in 2 dimensions. That's the worst possible thing. Basically the car has no actual form, like it literally looks like a rectangular block with wheels stuck on. I understand it's a streamlined aesthetic, but on a wagon? I don't think it looks good. On a hot rod, yes, it looks cool, but on the Rambler Cross Country? Not quite. The roof section of the car looks weird too. The shape of it looks all mismatched on the car. It looks like they accidentally chopped the roof off awkwardly and were like, oh shit, and quickly bodged together a roof panel in the shape of the cutout. I really dislike how this car has no arches. It makes me feel uncomfortable looking at the car. I feel like they were feeling lazy with the design and thought streamlining it would be a cool alternative, but it doesn't make any sense, as it's not really a performance vehicle. Moving on to the ugliest small car of the 50s, which goes to the 1955 BMW Isetta. Come on. You know that there is no defense for this thing to be this ugly, but yeah, it's ugly. Really ugly. I don't think I need to explain myself with this one, but effectively the Isetta looks like a bug that got squashed into a ball and then they stuck 2 headlights on either side of it. The chrome pieces that stick out of the front end makes it look like a fridge, which actually is ironic as this car was designed by ISO, an Italian company that built refrigerators before World War II. looks like they put the fridge doors to good use. As well as it being hideous, it's also impractical. Imagine if you had parked in such a tight space that you couldn't get out without getting trapped or causing damage. You can't even reverse it because there's no reverse gear, which would probably mean you'd need someone to help you. To be fair, if you had one of these things, I don't think you'd have anyone to help you.
Boom. Roasted.
And now onto the ugliest luxury car of the 50s, which goes to the 1956 Studebaker Hawk. Let's be honest, nobody could be bothered to design the car, and then one day someone saw a crayon drawing that a kid had done and thought, yes, that's it, that's the one. The front end is nasty. There are these horrid vent systems on either side of the main grille, which looks out of shape in relation to the rest of the car. The bonnet has this air intake scoop, which frankly looks like they stuck it on to add some style to the car, which they basically ruined. It's like they are overcompensating. I think the worst part about the car is definitely the rear end. Those fins that extend out of the car look so hideous. What was going through their heads when they were designing this car? The boot lid area of the car is also kind of strange too. I don't like the textured lines they put in, as it makes it look like the car has a grille on the back. It kind of looks as if the rear end of the car should have been the front end of the car. With those large fins and overstyled front, it looks like they were trying to design a Batmobile, but for the broke, wish version of Bruce Wayne. And now onto the ugliest sports car of the 50s, which goes to the 1952 Nash Healey. Okay, I have to admit that this one probably is the least ugliest car I could actually find. The body shape of the car isn't too bad. In fact, proportionally, it's pretty good, especially with that two-seater coupe setup. It seems more promising when the creator of this car, Nash Kelvinator, restyled the car by getting Pininfarina to do it, who, as we know, has designed some pretty good-looking Italian cars. However, it seems that Nash didn't exactly make it clear what he wanted, or didn't pay Pininfarina enough, because the front end looks really bad. The front end has this unnecessarily thick chrome piece that sticks out from the bottom of the car. Does it need to be that thick and gargantuan? Then we get to the grille, which is above the hideous chrome piece, and it's tiny, but still manages to cram in the two circular headlights, giving the front end this short and narrow appearance. It's like the front end has no breathing room. It's a real shame because I think the rest of the car is nicely shaped and designed, but it's like they got to the front end and went, meh, that'll do. Not a fine hour for Pininfarina. Oh dear. And finally, onto the ugliest car in general of the 50s, which goes to the 1956 Tatra 603. This car was built specifically for Czechoslovakian government officials, and in all honesty, it should have never seen the light of day because, boy, it looks hideous. I think the retro-futuristic approach to the aesthetic appearance was a promising start, and being embodied in a streamlined shape was another good idea, but the end execution is awkward. The rear end is awful, specifically the boot lid area, which looks as if it's melted into the back of the car. I don't particularly like the split rear window design. It looks as if it's put there to make the crease in between to be essential. But the worst thing about the Tatra is the front end. Like,
what the hell is even that?
Who thought having 3 headlights was a good idea? Who? It looks awful, like some sort of Triclops eye thing. It's kind of unsettling to look at. I also am not a fan of the air scoop they fitted to the bonnet. It doesn't make the front end any better, just more atrocious. There was an option for you to get your Tatra 603 in a 2-tone paint scheme, and honestly, no. Just no. Please stop. Ugh. It looks so bad and really makes this one of those cars you'd see an old-fashioned horrific looking villain driving. At least this car was a fine example of how not to design a car, something Tatra would later learn and update in the late 60s. I'm glad they realised how ugly this version was. So in conclusion, those are my picks for what I thought were the 6 ugliest cars in the 50s. But what do you guys think? Comment down below your picks for what you think the 6 ugliest cars in the 50s are, using the 6 car category list, which consists of convertible, SUV, small car, luxury car, sports car, and general car. And let me know what you think of my choices as well. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.